November's seen another legislative change in Wales, and that is amendments to the Tenant Fees Act and new changes in relation to holding deposits. Agents are going to need to start providing a lot more details about the tenancy to tenants before they take the holding deposit. What we have produced is a fact sheet together with a template document that agents can use to make sure that they are complying with the legislation. In addition to that, we are expecting shortly, probably towards the end of this year, maybe the beginning of 2020, information to be coming out on changes to the default fees and more clarity on what can and can't be charged for under default fees with the ban in Wales. Now, one of the things we have mentioned, and we actually met with the Welsh Housing Minister, Julie James AM, on the 4th of December to talk about process and the length of time the Welsh Government is giving agents from issuing guidance and passing laws to when it comes into force. It's just not enough time, and it is only in Wales. Your colleagues in England have been given much longer by the Westminster Government and similarly by the Scottish Government for agents up in Scotland. The Welsh Minister did completely take on board our concern and has pledged to work with the industry much more closely for when new pieces of legislation are coming into force. While staying on Wales as well, we are also expecting in the near future the Welsh Government's plans for the abolition of Section 21 and probably either a draft bill or a full bill into the Senedd, probably somewhere between the end of this year and the beginning part of 2020. So November has also seen a huge amount of political campaigning in advance of the general election on the 12th of December. At this point in time, we've now had all the party political manifestos being launched, and having reviewed them all, it looks like all the main political parties in England are pledging the abolition of Section 21. When we have a new government come mid-December, we will be making sure that that government and the ministers really understand the impact of abolishing Section 21, and if they are going to go down that route, we're going to be pushing very heavily that they need to sort the court system out, they need to sort Section 8 reform out before they go forward with the abolition of Section 21, but we will be launching a mass member engagement campaign to really highlight the importance of Section 21 and why it shouldn't be abolished. So the Regulation of Property Agents Working Group and its recommendations to fully regulate the industry is attracting a huge amount of attention and interest from the industry. We're seeing record numbers at our regional conferences and regional meetings, as well as on our webinars, for agents really trying to get ahead of the game, ahead of their competition, and get themselves and their staff qualified. Now, whilst ROPA is somewhat on hold at the moment during the general election cycle, we are expecting a government announcement shortly in the new year on how they are going to implement the proposals. But at this point in time, we would encourage agents to get ahead of that curve, start getting qualified, because as Lord Best said at a recent industry event, he promises that regulation will be coming into force. Our monthly surveys are a great opportunity to highlight the really important work that agents do across the country. They get national, local and trade pickup every month, but we are seeing the number of agents responding to that survey starting to drop. It's only 5 to 10 questions. It shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes a month, and we would really encourage you to respond to those surveys to highlight the important issues that are affecting the industry so that we can highlight those to government and to the media. Particularly, we would ask you to respond to the January survey, where we are going to be asking some questions on the industry's feedback of the tenant fees ban during its first 6 months in operation. And therefore, to get a really good sample, we would encourage members to respond to all surveys, but particularly the tenant fees survey in January. Another piece of legislation coming into force shortly is the 5th Money Laundering Directive. That must be transposed into UK law by the 10th of January next year. We are awaiting guidance, but unfortunately the Purdah gag order has made it more difficult for the government to issue the guidance necessary for agents to prepare. If you're a sales agent, you already are covered within the AML regime, the anti-money laundering regime. For letting agents, you will fall within it from the 10th of January next year. There will be a cap of a monthly aggregate rent of €10,000 or about £8,500. At this point in time, we are waiting final clarity whether that figure is going to be per landlord or per property. But for properties or landlords that trigger over that figure, agents will need to do full KYC, CDD and source of funds checks on both their landlords and their tenants. As soon as we have the guidance, as soon as we have more information, we will be putting that out to the industry, but do prepare for the introduction of the 5th Money Laundering Directive on the 10th of January 2020. The 1st of April this year saw the introduction of mandatory client money protection. For ARLA members, for Propertymark protected firms, there wasn't a huge amount of change. Propertymark is one of the government authorised client money protection providers, but because of the requirements imposed on us as CMP providers, we had to massively increase the insurance cover in the event that our members were to misappropriate funds. And to give you an idea, we increased it from £5 to £50 million. That had an increase, as I'm sure you can appreciate, on our costs, which this year we have had to pass back to our members through CMP rises. Now, client money protection under the new regulations only needs to cover other client funds, and that is the money that's in your client account that is not a protected deposit. Protected deposits are covered by the TDP schemes, everything else is covered by the CMP schemes. Now, in 2019, we created a CMP levy based on all the money in your client accounts. During the year, we have been breaking that down and gaining the data from members on what is protected deposits and what's everything else. From 2020 and beyond, we will now be basing the CMP levy on just what's left, the other client funds. And therefore, when you get your CMP levy next year, it will be based on what you put in your accountant's report or health check during 2019 of the value of other client funds, not the total value of your client account. We will be issuing those levies in the near future.